news for the hour is Joe Biden having dropped out of the presidential race of 2024. Let's get right into the story with regards to what exactly has happened and the analysis behind what's gone down. In a surprising turn of events, United States President Joe Biden announced on Sunday that he is pulling out of the presidential race and endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris to succeed him. Biden has said that he will finish his term and address the nation later this week. The U.S. president has in fact been facing calls to quit the race from within his own party for quite some time now. And Biden took to social media platform X to make this announcement. He has said, and I quote, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. While it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." Former United States President Barack Obama has reacted to the political development, calling Biden a patriot of the highest order. Let's take a look at what Barack Obama has said. He has said, and I quote, "Joe Biden has been one of America's most consequential presidents, as well as a dear friend and a partner to me. Today, we've also been reminded again that he's a patriot of the highest order." Meanwhile, Kamala Harris has officially taken over what was formerly Joe Biden's campaign, according to a new filing with the Federal Election Commission. The committee has switched its name from Biden for president to Harris for president. Now, we'll quickly take a look at what exactly has happened within the Democratic Party over the years, over Biden's term, and what's led to this particular decision, what has culminated to this particular decision of Joe Biden dropping out from the presidential election.
U.S. President Joe Biden has ended his faltering re-election bid. In a post on X, the 81-year-old said he would stay in his role as president and commander-in-chief until his term ends in January. "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president," he said, while adding, "I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down." He also endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to replace him as the party's candidate.
They just paid 24% or 25%, either one of those numbers.
There's been a wave of public and private pressure from Democratic lawmakers and party officials for him to quit after his shockingly poor performance in a televised debate last month against Donald Trump, his Republican rival.
If we finally beat Medicare,
it took the spotlight away from Trump's false statements and put it squarely on Biden's fitness for another 4-year term. All his donors began to revolt.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Other gaffes at a NATO summit did not help either. He invoked Russian President Vladimir Putin's name when he meant Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and called Harris Vice President Trump.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president.
When you get knocked down, you get back up.
Biden initially resisted pressure to step aside and sat down for rare television interviews. But polls showed Trump's lead in key battleground states widening, and Democrats began to fear a wipeout in the House and Senate. Just days ago, Biden was diagnosed with COVID-19.
Trump wanted to run against Biden.
Darrell West with the Brookings Institution says Biden's move creates problems for the Republicans, at least in the short term.
They're just going to have to recast the whole thrust of their campaign, which was saying Joe Biden was too old, he couldn't do the job, his family was corrupt. All that disappears now.
For his part, Trump told CNN on Sunday that he believed Harris would be easier to defeat in the November 5th election. It's unclear whether other senior Democrats might challenge Harris for the nomination or if the party would choose to open the field for nominations. Biden is the first sitting president to give up his party's nomination for re-election since President Lyndon Johnson in 1968. And it leaves his replacement with less than 4 months to wage a campaign.
Now, U.S. President Joe Biden abandoned his floundering re-election bid on Sunday under growing pressure from his fellow Democrats itself. So what happens next? Take a look at this report.
President Biden is remaining president. So he's not stepping down from that job. He's not stepping down as commander-in-chief. The Constitution would have, or does, lay out that the vice president takes over if the president is incapacitated or steps down or is not able to continue with his job. That is not what's happening here. Biden is stepping aside as the Democratic presidential candidate. His endorsement of Harris means she will now have political momentum to take over at the top of the ticket. But the decision has to be made by Democratic delegates who will gather at the convention in August. And those delegates, up until today, were committed to Joe Biden because he won their support by being the Democratic candidate who won all of the Democratic primaries. And the fact that he is now not going to be the nominee will open the Democrats to some criticism. And you're already seeing that on the Republican side, that President Biden being sort of jettisoned aside is seen as undemocratic with a small d. And that's a weakness that Republicans, I expect, will try to.
Over the years, US President Joe Biden has made numerous verbal stumbles and gaffes. From verbal slip-ups to near-fall incidents, Mr. Biden has been often targeted by the opposition leaders due to his age, raising concerns among his voters and, in fact, this time even among the people who've been backing him. And he's experienced it all. The 81-year-old has provided many hearty laughs and shocked others with his quite blunder-prone personalities. Here's a compilation of all the times that President Biden has been involved in accidents and slips during his term. Let's take a look.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world. Now, just to get here, Liberty and Bell had to beat some tough odds and competition. They had to work hard to show patience and be willing to travel over 1,000 miles. You could say even this harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour or Britney's tour. She's down in, it's kind of warm in Brazil right now. As you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. My memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on. Folks, let me close with this. I know I'm not a young man. State the obvious. Well, I know. Well, Russia will not prevail in this war. Ukraine will prevail in this war, and we'll stand with them every single step of the way. That's what the compact says, loudly and clearly. And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President.
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
Well, clearly the instances haven't just been physical goof-ups or gaffes, but also verbal slips that he's had through the years during his term. Well, that was a compilation that we brought to you with regards to all that's probably not gone so right for Joe Biden through his term.